All right, everybody, greetings. It is in my zone of the world, October 30th. It's almost Halloween. We had some of you stayed up late or got up early to watch the big baseball game last night with the Astros. Maybe Yoni did. I know he's into that stuff. But the Astros pulled it out in an exciting game, World Series. It's happening now. So I'll keep you updated. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, which is law number 11 in the 21 laws of leadership. And you're like, 21 laws, we've got 10 more. Yes, we do. So you have to keep tuning in to complete your notes. But this is about the law of the inner circle. The law of the inner circle. So jot that down. We're going to talk just about this concept. This is another one of those concept laws. And if you're younger, as most of you are, you can sort of ponder how to select your inner circle. So let's get started. Here's the big note from here. I'll tell you when to take big notes. Here's a good one. Your potential as a leader is determined by those closest to you. Okay, you might want to write that down. Your potential as a leader is determined by the people closest to you, according to Maxwell, right? So you may have heard the saying, we have an idiomatic phrase here in the States that says, birds of a feather flock together. You may have heard that. If you're from different sectors of the world, you may say, what? I don't understand what this means. It simply means that people that are alike, to use this metaphor of the birds, people that are alike tend to group together. So birds of a feather, they flock together. So my suggestion is you pick your own birds to fly with, so to speak. All right? Give you an example. My son, Luke, who is now out of university and teaching and doing well, when he was early on at university, was surrounded by friends. He chose his inner circle of a couple, 2 or 3 guys who were not good influences on him. Anybody know folks like that? Anybody go to school with people who were, there are 2 types of people you go to school with. The people that you might study with because they also study and are focused. And then the people that do this. Hoy! All the time, right? I don't know what hoy means. But nonetheless, you want to surround yourself with people who will be a good influence on you. And when my son was at university, his friends, literally, he had a friend who was pre-med, thinking about becoming a doctor, who's played World of Warcraft for 12 hours a day. Can you believe it? It was like he was fighting a boss for like 4 hours with his group. I forgot all the terms. He was out there poning noobs with his shoddy. Anyway, he got so lost in video games that he essentially dropped out of school. So, and my son, his defense was always, well, Dad, I'm doing better than any of the guys I'm living with. And my response was, that doesn't mean you're the cream of the crop. That means you're the cream of the crap, Luke. You are just simply the best of people that aren't really going anywhere. So let me explain. Inner circle, these aren't just the people that you attract. These are the people that you select. The people that are going to coach you maybe a little, counsel you, maybe be an accountability partner. And if the inner circle is strong, then you can make a big, huge impact. If the people that are around you that are coaching and counseling you, or people that you've selected to spend the most time with, are weak, you can't make a big difference. So I think of a few examples in different realms. One, I think of if you've ever watched the Tour de France. The Tour de France is always, there's sort of like a person that's highlighted, but really each cycling team is not just a person. The winner is always the person who's cycling with the strongest team of cyclists, right? And they aren't the first to finish every day, but they're always the first pack to finish every day. So the inner circle, that little tight-knit group of cyclists, the best ones, are going to win the Tour de France. Here's another big point. Write this one down. Maxwell says, no one ever does anything great alone. No one ever does anything great alone. And you know what this makes me think of the first time I went to an LGFG meeting a couple of years ago. I think it was Leeds. And I listened to Dimitri kind of share his story about his trajectory with LGFG and why he founded it, started it, and made it grow. Is because he is obviously the consummate salesperson, you know, the hunter, kill, eat, bring in your own finance. He's good at that. But he thought, you know what, that doesn't always bring fulfillment. Why don't I bring some other people along, help them do well, make an impact on their lives, and then we can make this thing big. And that's what's happening. So no one ever does anything great alone. LGFG example. So what I'm going to suggest you do if you're in your 20s or 30s is you start getting strategic about creating your inner circle. All right? So let me tell you, my inner circle currently is a small group of guys that I know from church. And most of them, all but one, are older than me. And they're a strange consistency of people. And we decided, as I met them and got to know folks, we decided to band together and actually meet once a week. So once a week, in fact, in exactly 2 hours, I will sit down with 5 or 6 very different people from very different backgrounds with very different life experiences and try to absorb wisdom from them. Okay? One's a lawyer. One is a car mechanic who owns his own shop, and I know nothing about cars. I mean, I almost have to pull into a full service station to have someone help me fill it up with gas. I don't know, a carburetor from the exhaust pipe. So we have a car mechanic, a lawyer. I've got an insurance guy who is an insurance adjuster, which sounds intimately boring to me, but he's not. There's a guy who is Craig Valentine's, a missionary to India, which is interesting because that's cool. That's different. There's a guy who is a blogger, a writer professionally. So they're older, they're wiser, they're more knowledgeable. They're a very seasoned team, and I meet with them once a week. So the first hour, what we do is go around the room and we say, so, you know, Robert, tell me how you're doing. And Robert has to say, oh, I'm doing pretty well. And we don't just skip to the next guy as we're eating lunch. We're kind of like, okay, now tell me how you're really doing. It gets a little bit, you know, or if one of them might say, how are you getting along with your wife? And I was like, oh, everything's great. And they're like, really? I'm like, well, you know, occasionally we have issues. And they're like, tell us more. So it's an interesting dynamic in that it's easy, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's easy for guys to hurtle through life in our own little orbit and be very alone. But I need an inner circle around me to keep me accountable, to ask questions, sometimes hard questions, and to get to know me. It is fun to get to know people on a deeper level than just, hey, how are you? Cool, nice shirt today. You know, it's good for you. So I'll encourage you to start thinking about who is in my inner circle. Who can I get? Okay, maybe somebody a little bit older. The first hour is checking up on each other. The second hour, we're reading through and studying one of the 66 books in the Bible. So I trust all those guys to hold me accountable and ask questions. When I was going through the John Maxwell training, there were mentors who you got on conference calls with. You got to know, they asked questions. They listened to your life bio. So it's good to start to have these folks, and it takes a long time, I think, to find and pick and discover the people that will be part of your inner circle. So it's not someone that, you know, just like, hey, an accountability partner, hold me to my goals. You know, if we'll have a contest. It's not like that. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more on a life experience level. Okay. So think about different examples. I know if you look out in the world, there are if you think of politics, politicians' inner circles are super important. In America's history, we had Abraham Lincoln. He chose men in his cabinet who had very similar principles. They were trying to keep the nation together during the Civil War, but they disagreed vastly on ideas and how to approach, for example, the Civil War. So he consciously chose people with complementary gifts. I hope that makes sense. I think about 2 Chronicles, most of you have heard about King David. He sort of attracted And this is sort of the law of magnetism, but he consciously went out and attracted people that were different from him. Mighty warriors, he selected them, handpicked them to establish Israel's kingdom. So he had close advisors, he had counselors, he had associates who shared their wisdom. And so he reigned. He was like the king of Israel, if you study ancient history. All right, so what do we do? Get it back to the modern times. What do we do? There are a few guidelines that I would suggest if you think what should the composition of my inner circle be about. Here are 4 ideas. 1, make sure the people that you select or ask to be part of your inner circle have a high influence with others. So the first question is, if I'm thinking about somebody for my inner circle, do they have a high influence? Okay, can they influence other people? Because you want sharp people to be on your team. Look around, and if you think about the law of the lid, your leadership lid is like a 6 or a 7, then you want to have at least 7s or 8s or somebody that you can kind of learn from. So, and they have a high influence and high impact. All right, you don't want to surround yourself. I got this great inner circle. They're all 3s. Great. Well, you're a good leader, but you won't gain anything from them. All right. 2, second question. Do they bring a complementary gift to your relationship? So bring a few key people into your inner circle who possess strengths in your area of weakness. Okay? They have a strength where you have an area of weakness. So, for example, you might, if you don't do well with your finances, you might ask one person on your inner circle to be someone who is a good financial person. Help you save, because you'll need that. Okay? Because making money is great, but saving it is real key. More on that at a different time. The third question you can ask yourself if you're thinking about somebody for your inner circle is, do they add value to you and to the organization? Do they add value to you and the organization? In other words, do they believe in what you're doing? They're not trying to countermand. They're not going to sit around and say, gee whiz, Sonata, you sure work too hard. You should relax more. That's probably not somebody you want to invite onto your team, because their principles are way different. You want somebody that's be supportive and adds value. And the fourth thing is, do they positively impact other people in your inner circle? Do they positively impact other people on your team? And I'm not saying you have to meet with your inner circle all the time. You could do it individually with some of them. But I know Maxwell has a super unbelievable inner circle of people that are highly qualified that he surrounds himself with, and they raise each other's game, so to speak. So you should do that too. Or do they help each other? You don't want a lot of infighting in your inner circle. All right, so 3 C's to think about, 3 traits that you want to have with somebody in your inner circle. These are easy to remember because it starts with C, all of them. It's very alliterative. 1, they need to have chemistry. Chemistry. In other words, they need to get along with you. They need to get along with each other. Chemistry. 2, they need to have character. You need your inner circle to be people of character. Unlike my son's early on inner circle, who lacked focus and direction, maybe even character, you want to have people who are of sound character. You trust them. Number 3, so chemistry, character. Third one is competence. Competence. You want people who are competent. They know what they're doing. If you look at John Ouellette, some of you get to talk to him. I believe he has those traits. Good chemistry with Dimitri and you guys. Obviously a man of character. And third, highly competent. He has a great track record. So he would qualify as a good inner circle person. So again, to reiterate, nobody ever does anything great alone. Leaders don't succeed alone. What makes the difference in leaders is their inner circle. So I want you to start thinking, okay, inner circle, as I'm growing in my career trajectory, how am I starting to pick an inner circle? Okay. Let's see. That's good. I'll skip that part. Let's get to one or two other thoughts. Always surround yourself with people who are better than you. Okay? Always surround yourself with people who are better than you. I was talking the other day with Tisa, and she said when we both came to an LGFG meeting early on, she kind of looked around and she said, these people are sharp. You know, it was like, I kind of want to be part of this gig, because she looked around and she thought, these are people who are going places. They're making things happen. So surround yourself with people who are better with you than you. I know when most of the things I did in life, whether it was school or athletics or whatever, I could usually, metaphorically speaking, put my gear in about third gear or second or third gear, and I could still be above average. One thing I appreciated about my background with Southwestern, selling books 80 hours a week as a university student, you know, some of you have done that thing, is it forced me to use my fourth and fifth gear overdrive. You can't see my hand, but I'm actually shifting here right by my side. So some of you are used to just relying on talent. You can just kind of cruise through stuff in third gear. It is good to use and have to use a fourth and fifth gear, and sometimes that overdrive. I think LGFG makes you do that. You're surrounded by good people who are doing a challenging endeavor, and it helps you raise your game. Okay? The other thing I'd say is this about inner circle: be prepared to be an inner circle team member for someone else. There were a couple times in my life where a couple guys that I worked with asked if they could meet with me occasionally, once every couple of weeks, just to get not a formal life coaching arrangement, but they just kind of wanted to spend time because they felt like I had something to contribute to them. So I was willing to be on an inner circle with somebody else. Okay, so does everybody have the idea? Raise your hand if you've got the idea. Inner circle. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 6 or 7 of you are awake and are engaged, so that's good. But I want you to think about this. This might be one of those long-range goals, like in the next year or so. Just turn on your radar, boop, 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 and start scanning for people that you would look up to, that would challenge you, that would encourage you when you need it, and would certainly not put up with your BS. That's what you want, somebody that won't listen, that won't, you know, you won't just give them a platitude and they go, okay, great, have a good day. You know, they're like willing to kind of get into your stuff. You want those kind of people on your inner circle. All right? So first question for your discussion questions: do I have an inner circle? Second question: who should be part of my inner circle? Maybe brainstorm with your office mates there. How am I going to develop them? Because you have to kind of give them some expectations. Here's what I want from you. This is what I want from our relationship. Okay? And guys, you just can't go, oh, you know what? I just need an inner circle just of beautiful women. That's what I need. No, I'm not talking about a harem or anything. You understand what I'm talking about. So start thinking about this. Make a list. Think, who would be a good influence on me and how can I help them? All right, couple quotes. Let me give you a quote, and I'm even going to read you a short poem as we wrap up, because I know a lot of you love poetry. Right. Here's one from Emerson, American philosopher. He said this: our chief desire in life is to find someone who will make us do what we can. That's good. Our chief want in life is to find someone who will make us do what we can. That is a good inner circle person, because a lot of us will settle for less. All right. So let me finish with this. And if you guys have any comments, questions, input, or whatever, then you can jump in after this. But here's a short poem by Ella Wilcox. And the reason that this is part of the book, I'm reading it right out of Maxwell's book, is that Maxwell's mother used to read this to John Maxwell all the time when he was growing up. So here goes. It's not too long. There are 2 kinds of people on earth today. Just 2 kinds of people, no more, I say, not the good and the bad, for it is well understood that the good ones are half bad and the bad are half good. This has kind of a Dr. Seuss lilt to it. No, 2 kinds of people on earth, I mean, are the people who lift and the people who lean. There are 2 kinds of people on earth today, just 2 kinds of people, no more, I say, not the sinner and saint, For it's well understood, the good are half bad and the bad are half good. No, the two kinds of people on earth, I mean, are the people who lift and the people who lean. Think about that. People who lift you up, the givers, the people who lean, those who take, who are just here to absorb from other people. So, food for thought. All right. Any comments, questions, input? You can unmute yourself. Let's see. Anybody? Okay. For people, blank stares. Excellent. Okay. Well, gang, that's it for this week. Very exciting to spend time with you again. Next week, we're going to talk about the law of empowerment. That secure leaders, as you grow into your leadership, you actually give your power away. You don't try to absorb it. So more on that later. But start thinking about that. Put it in the back of your mind. Inner circle. Why that would be important to me. Who I might have on my team. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Until next week. See ya. Bye-bye.